Hey everybody, John here from the esports department going over the North American slate for 627, the second day of the weekend, not including classic Friday night league that we just had last night. Not the most exciting slate. I think there's going to be some kind of chalk when it comes to the underdogs on the slate, but we'll have a look. Let's start with Immortals. They're plus 155, 0-4 on the season. Now, it's really important to note that not only is Immortals not running any of their normal LCS players, it's the entire backup team. They're also running their backup coaches. They've gotten rid of their coaching staff from the LCS. The LEC or the LCS Academy staff has stepped up to help. They're playing the Academy squad. So what I went ahead and did here was pull up the stats for the Academy team. Now, of course, that's important to notice. I left this, the record for the LCS team, but the rest of the stats there are for the Immortals Academy team. Kind of important to note, I think, that these stats were played against worse teams, so we should take them with a little bit of a grain of salt, but let's compare their numbers from Academy against the Golden Guardians numbers. Golden Guardians are 1-3 on the season. They are minus 215, and I think probably a start to the season that is not really representative of how good Golden Guardians is. I think Golden Guardians is going to be a playoff team. I think they're pretty good. They've had a bit of a tough schedule and a game or two that didn't quite go their way when they would have liked it to, but in general, I think this Golden Guardians team is pretty good, and let's see how they compare to the Immortals Academy when it comes to that. So gold per minute, 1719 to 1734 for Immortals. This is a kind of stat that is probably the most honest of the stats when it comes to, like, for Immortals being an Academy set of numbers versus an LCS set of numbers. The gold per minute, at least, is probably the most true stat. So in that sense, they're doing pretty well. Gold differential per minute, it's only plus 12 for Immortals, but it's minus 99 for Golden Guardians. First hurt, first blood, 25-50 for Golden Guardians, 50-33 for Immortals. Gold difference at 15 is pretty telling, minus 761 for Immortals in Academy, so they're not even getting leads in Academy. Golden Guardians plus 626, not even including Academy, being just an LCS number. And damage per minute, very high from Golden Guardians, 1920 to the 1762. So these guys have been playing in Academy, and they're still not doing as much damage to champions as Golden Guardians has been doing in the LCS. That's very good for Golden Guardians, in my opinion. KPW and DPL, 15 KPW for Immortals Academy, and 1667 for their DPL. Those are, for the LCS, pretty high numbers. For the Academy League, this is actually really low, but if they bring these same type of numbers into the LCS, they'll be one of the bloodier teams, probably. For Golden Guardians, 15 and 15.3, and they lean towards being one of the bloodier teams in the LCS. This matchup feels like highly targetable. Whether you're messing with the Immortals side of it or the Golden Guardians side of it, it feels really highly targetable. Golden Guardians is too cheap, considering the matchup. I think the fact that they're 1-3 is not really that important to me. I think this team's pretty good, and they're just way too cheap for a favorite. Playing against an Academy team who's also pretty bloody. And then Immortals, if you think that the Academy roster is going to be pretty good, Golden Guardians should give them a bloody game, and so Immortals makes a decent GPP play, I think. Golden Guardians and Immortals, definitely a matchup I'm looking to target on this slate for sure. Going on to CLG and 100 Thieves. CLG plus 115, they're 3-2 on the season. 100 Thieves minus 155, and they are 1-3 on the season. A really disappointing start to the season for 100 Thieves. I was expecting them to come out being one of the rosters that's been most consistent, come out, know what they're doing from spring, pick up right where they left off. They haven't looked great so far. Let's dive into some numbers a little bit, because CLG, obviously, they were talking about it a lot on the broadcast last night. They were 3-1 going into their game last night, but it's kind of fraudulent numbers. They did put up a good fight against FlyQuest, which was, worth noting. But CLG had kind of stolen wins away from some of the bottom teams, so not necessarily a team that when I look at their 3-2 record, I'm going like, wow, pretty impressive. Not super impressive, but let's have a look. 1725 gold per minute for CLG, 1639 for 100 Thieves. gold differential per minute, only minus 34 for CLG, minus 219 for 100 Thieves. So 2 stats in a row immediately leaning CLG. First Blood, First Turret, 20-40 to 50-50, so 100 Thieves a little bit more objective-oriented in the early game. CLG at 15, minus 1678 for 100 Thieves, that's minus 1378. So a little bit better for 100 Thieves there, but both teams have been very bad in the early game, is what that's telling you. And damage per minute, CLG with 1729 to the 1672 of 100 Thieves. So definitely CLG looking better in the damage per minute setup. They're looking better in gold differential per minute. They're looking better in gold per minute. Definitely makes me want to lean CLG in this one, and you're looking at an underdog. This is where I think you might be able to get some lower ownership. If you were going to mess around with trying to get a little bit of lower ownership in the GPPs, I think CLG makes sense because I think there's another underdog that's probably going to be pretty highly targeted. And CLG actually statistically looks pretty decent against 100 Thieves. The gold differential per minute says 100 Thieves is a little bit better in the early game, but overall the numbers favor towards CLG, and that makes sense, I think, from what we've seen this season. The bot lane, mid lane, and jungle of 100 Thieves have all looked pretty mediocre this season, and even some days not exactly having a banger. So CLG, I think, definitely a live underdog that we could take a look at playing in the GPPs. Next up, Team Liquid. They are minus 475, 3-2 on the season. Dignitas 0-4 on the season, and plus 295. This one just feels fair. This just feels like it is what it is. 1760 to 1603 in gold per minute. Positive gold differential versus a huge negative gold differential for Dignitas. 80-60 in First Blood, First Turret versus 50-25. Positive gold of 15 versus negative. Higher damage. There's just no reason to think that Dignitas is going to win here. They're not a team I'm looking to target at all. If you really wanted to take a shot at his best of one, Dignitas could get there. I wouldn't recommend being on Dignitas unless it's like a very large field GPP and you're just trying to get some ownership, because even when you look at the KPW and DPL, 14 and 10 for Team Liquid, 13 DPL for Dignitas. Neither one of those teams really striking me as like a hot option for DFS whatsoever. Seems like a game you could kind of full fade. People are likely to play it because Team Liquid's probably the biggest favorite on the slate. Seems like an absolutely great game to fade and just get away from all the people that will just play Team Liquid because they're a big favorite. Team Liquid should just come out and take care of business here, but probably not score super well for DFS. Last matchup of the day, TSM plus 155. They're 2-2 on the season. EG minus 215. They are 3-1 on the season. This is a matchup where I feel like TSM might end up being a little bit overowned. There is some reason for it. I think TSM is a solid team that's going to end up top 4 in the league, and it's not super surprising that people would take them against EG, who's probably right in the same conversation, top 4 in the league somewhere. I do think EG has looked better this season. Let's see if the stats back that up. 1753 for TSM in gold per minute, and that's 1830 for EG, so a little advantage there. Gold differential per minute, 36 for TSM, 194 for EG, so actually many multiples higher for EG. That's a big difference. First Blood, First Turret, they both have 50% First Blood. TSM a little bit better at taking the first turret so far. Gold differential at 15, a very small positive for TSM at 64, a large number, plus 1148 for EG. And damage per minute right in the same ballpark, just a very, very, very slight edge to TSM, but right in the same ballpark there. We will say with TSM, they've been very bloody. Do I have that number correct? That number is crazy. Yeah, that's the way it's looking. A wildly high number for TSM there. And let's go back real quick, because I promised that I would talk to everybody about this kind of stuff. We wanted to talk about what's correlating to win percentage in the leagues, and you guys can kind of take a look at this here. This is the LCS model. You'll see the win percentage and gold per minute correlation is extremely high. It's the same as it was in the LEC pretty much. The LEC was a little bit higher, but the gold per minute win percentage correlation just off the charts. So looking at gold per minute just makes a really big difference. Baron percentage obviously is always going to be high, but the LPL tends to be a little bit lower than some of the other leagues. Extremely high here. um, just an interesting set of correlations there. And if you look at the spring correlation, at the end of spring it was correlated at 0.88, so a little bit worse than it's correlating right now. But very, very interesting stuff, and I promised I'd go over this stuff with everybody and just let you have a look at some of these stats and how they're playing out. And you can see lots of different stats for all the teams coming up in this sheet as well. It's kind of the same information that you would see on like a GOL or something like that. Let me look at... We also have all the player data. This is the kind of stuff that's going into your models. Gold per minute, damage per minute, all that kind of stuff for all the players. Gold percentages, KPs, just like everything you would want, basically. So just so you know what kind of stuff is going into these projections and why I think they're so trustworthy, this is the kind of crazy stuff that Roberts has got going on back in the modeling lab. Fantasy points earned based on results for every team. Fantasy points allowed based on results for every team. And just feel free to take a look at those. You're welcome to pause the screen and just have a look at what's going on in all these pages, because there's a ton of information here. And this is why I think that the projections are just insanely good and insanely worth trusting. But I just wanted to double check the KPW and DPL there, because it's absolutely wild that that TSM's number is that high. But looks like EG, I would actually expect their number to be a little bit bigger. I think this is probably going to end up being on the low side for them. So this matchup does project very bloodily. Does project to be very bloody. And I think you're going to see a lot of people going on the TSM side. I think for me, I might avoid the TSM side and go with some EG. I think TSM's too cheap. When you look at the numbers here, they're just way too cheap. And people are going to flock to TSM, I think. Not like they're going to be like 40% owned or something, but I think as far as the underdogs on this slate go, I don't think people are going to want to mess with Immortals or Dignitas, and you're going to see TSM and CLG probably with higher ownership to TSM. So let's just actually look at where we think that might play out. I definitely think Team Liquid will be among the highest owned teams on the slate. I think Golden Guardians is going to be among the highest owned teams on the slate. EG... I should just write all these out because I get all confused if I don't. EG, TSM, GGS, Immortals, and 100 Thieves, CLG. So I think you'll see very high ownership on Team Liquid. Whenever there's a team that's a huge favorite like that, I think people just go there, even though the fantasy points don't necessarily dictate that. That's one of the bigger edges you can find, so I think you're going to see really high ownership there. When people see that Immortals... backup roster is starting, Golden Guardians should come up here as well. These actually might be interchanged. I could see Golden Guardians being the highest owned. People always think they're getting an edge out of something that's not going to end up being an edge. Like, I didn't realize until about 40 minutes ago that Immortals was Academy lineup was playing, but by the time that slate starts, every single person pretty much is going to know that, or at least, you know, the ownership on the regular Immortals team is going to be 3% or whatever. And for the most part, people are going to be aware of that information. So I don't think it's really an edge, but people are going to think it is. And so Golden Guardians should be pretty highly owned, I would think. EG probably makes sense that EG would be up here somewhere, because I think TSM and EG are both going to be pretty owned. It might be something like this. Usually the favorites just end up higher owned. I wouldn't be super surprised to see 100 Thieves drop down below TSM. Probably something around this nature, I would guess. People might actually be more willing to play Immortals because it's the backup lineup, so I'm going to guess Dignitas is the lowest owned team on the slate. Something right in this range. I wouldn't be surprised to see these switch. I think these could switch around. But in general, I'm pretty confident these would be the bottom 3, and these would be the middle 3, and these would be the top 2, and it just matters how they're switched around in there. For me, I think it'll probably be kind of a plan to avoid Team Liquid, avoid Dignitas, and kind of crunch in on this portion right here. Maybe play a couple Dignitas lineups in whatever the larger field GPP is, but I think I'm going to mostly try to crunch my lineups up in here. Let's see what the projections look like, especially for the favorites. E.g., 100 Thieves, Team Liquid, and Golden Guardians. So Evil Genius is showing up the best. 100 Thieves next, so that's decent. This is in top lane, though, where Someday does tend to score pretty well. And Haunser in third place, Team Liquid showing up bottom, which I would have expected. 100 Thieves in the jungle, actually, showing up the highest. Team Liquid second, Evil Genius is third, and Golden Guardians actually on the bottom. Same in the mid lane. Surprising for me, to be honest with you. I mean, they are going up against the Immortals main roster numbers instead of the Immortals Academy rosters or numbers, so I do think I would pip these Golden Guardians ones up a little bit. I don't think they're going to be the lowest scoring team on the slate. I just want to make that pretty straightforward. The numbers work the way that they work, but when you're playing up against those academy team, you have to factor that into what you're doing here. 100 Thieves consistently showing up very well on these, though. Evil Geniuses at the 80 carry position, and then 100 Thieves again, Team Liquid and Golden Guardians. And Team Liquid showing up well at support, too, to be honest with you, compared to 100 Thieves. So this is a little bit surprising for me. I would have thought Team Liquid would have been near the bottom on every list, but they show up second and third a decent amount. I do think when you bump the Golden Guardians up from the extra points I would expect them to get, they are a pretty low KP team, so I can see why their projections are going this way, but I would bump them up a little bit playing against the Academy squad for sure. And I think you're going to see Team Liquid generally be near the bottom, with 100 Thieves just over projecting for what I would have guessed. So that might make 100 Thieves a bit more of a target if we think that they're going to be like in the 4th place. They might actually be where EG is. They might be 3rd highest owned, but that makes them a bit of a target if they're going to be one of the top projected teams. I could see Evil Geniuses and TSM being a real bore fest. It's happened a few times in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up that way. Let's look at the underdogs. No mid laner from Immortals. Okay, no top laner for Immortals either. Make sure I'm not excluding him, but I think he's just not in the pool. They might get added to the pool later, so do keep your eyes open for that, but sorry guys, my throat gets all messed up when I talk too much. So going to the top lane, or the TSM scoring the highest if they get a win, that doesn't surprise me. I do think TSM should project pretty well when they win. CLG in second, Dignitas coming last. So just another reason to avoid Dignitas. Even if they win, they don't project well. In the jungle, TSM, Immortals actually in second there against Golden Guardians, and then CLG and Dignitas. TSM in the mid lane with CLG and Dignitas behind. So Dignitas just routinely bringing up the rear, TSM bringing up the top, and then it's kind of a CLG or Immortals in the middle. CLG generally third with Immortals second. So the highest upside on the underdogs is clearly TSM. Immortals and CLG in the middle somewhere. Usually Immortals behind CLG. It's hard to stack Immortals unless they do add those people to the pool. I'm going to assume that they will add them later, but if they don't, it's going to make it really hard to play them. So you have to be aware of that as well. You can maybe play them as a small stack because you can get their 80 carries, so you could probably do 80 carry captains with Apollo and somebody. That might be the way to stack Immortals if you're going to stack them. For cash lineups, the numbers would lean you to Team Liquid. Golden Guardians is 215, EG's 215. I think Golden Guardians is a lot safer. So the numbers would lean you to Liquid and Golden Guardians. It's hard to argue with that, man. It's 80 carry captain. 2 favorites. with AD carry captain because of how cheap Golden Guardians is. I just don't think you can argue with that. I'll probably be in cash games pretty heavily with this today because that's just not arguable. If you can get two what I would call very large favorites with an AD carry captain, I just don't think you can pass up on that. So pretty easy cash lineup, and I don't think there's a lot to even say about it. That's a pretty straightforward slam dunk of a cash lineup, being able to get that. In any case, thank you guys. I'll talk to you again later. I have LCK and LPL to do later today, and we got to watch some LEC games in a minute here. So we'll get that done. Sit back for the rest of the day. Watch some LCS, some LEC. Watch some MMA later tonight. Anybody? Hit me up in the other channel if you guys are watching some MMA later tonight. and let's get it, guys. Let's get it, man. I'm ready to get a win in the LCS. Everybody knows I've struggled in the LCS. I'm ready to get a win there. I'll talk to you guys later.